Poor girl asks for food at the school party. What the young billionaire does moves everyone. Music blasts through the hallways of the elementary school, echoing a contagious joy that seems to have taken over every corner of the building. Children run back and forth, their laughter mixing with the sound of balloons tied to chairs. The air is filled with expectation and sweetness, literally. The smell of chocolate cake competes with the aroma of warm, savory snacks covering the long tables. It's party day at Maple Elementary School, and not just any party. It's the annual celebration that marks the end of the semester, where the entire community gathers to celebrate the achievements of the young students. Teachers circulate with tired but genuine smiles, trying to maintain some order in the controlled chaos that the school gym has become. Among the adult guests, one man stands out, not for his height, although he is tall, nor for his perfectly styled dark hair, but for the way he positions himself. Adrian Blackwood is there, standing near the wall, observing everything with a distance that goes far beyond the physical feat separating him from the party. At 32, Adrian carries on his shoulders the weight of a fortune he built from scratch. His tech company has turned him into one of the youngest billionaires in the country, but today he is not here as a CEO. He is here as a benefactor, a role he agrees to play, but which he seems to wear like elegant armor against the simple world around him. He watches the children with a distant curiosity, as if they were creatures from another planet. When was the last time he felt so free, so carefree? The question arises in his mind and quickly disappears, because Adrian Blackwood has no time for nostalgia. His cell phone vibrates in his pocket. It must be Margaret, his assistant, with another urgent question about the merger he is negotiating. Or maybe it's the lawyer about the lawsuit against the competing company. There is always something waiting for his attention, something more important than a school party, where he is just fulfilling a social obligation. But as he reaches for the phone, something makes him stop. A small girl has just entered his field of vision. She is at most 5 years old, with light blonde hair that shines under the colorful gym lights, and blue eyes that seem to carry a strange seriousness for someone so young. While the other children run, scream, and push each other to get to the food tables first, she walks slowly, almost hesitantly. Holly, though Adrian doesn't know her name yet, holds a small white paper plate in her tiny hands. The plate is empty, and that alone is strange enough at a party where all the children seem to have their hands and mouths full of treats. Adrian watches her approach the main table, where the most beautiful cakes and most appetizing snacks are displayed. Her teacher smiles at her and makes an encouraging gesture, as if to say, "Go ahead and take whatever you want, dear." But Holly doesn't reach out to take anything. Instead, she just stands there, looking at the abundance before her with an expression that Adrian can't quite decipher. There is desire there, yes, but also something more. Something that makes him frown and pay closer attention. The girl looks around as if searching for someone. Her eyes pass over Adrian for a second that, for some reason, makes him hold his breath, before she turns to the nearest teacher. The gym is noisy, full of lively conversations and loud laughter, but when Holly opens her mouth to speak, her low, hesitant voice seems to cut through all the noise. Or maybe it's just Adrian who is suddenly paying attention to every word. "Can I take some for my mommy?" she asks, pointing the empty plate toward the table laden with food. She hasn't eaten since yesterday. The effect is immediate and devastating. A strange silence seems to form around the girl, as if her words have created a bubble of a different reality in the middle of the party. The smiling teacher freezes for a moment, unsure how to respond. The nearby adults who overheard become embarrassed, looking at each other with that uncomfortable expression that appears when someone mentions something they would rather ignore. Poverty, hunger, real need. Things that shouldn't exist at such a joyful party, in such a tidy school, in a world where children should only worry about choosing between chocolate and strawberry cake. Adrian feels something strange happen in his chest. It's as if an invisible fist has closed around his heart and is squeezing slowly but firmly. He finds himself taking a step forward, not even realizing he has moved. Little Holly remains standing there, holding the empty plate, waiting for a response that doesn't come. Her blue eyes are clear and honest, without any trace of manipulation or drama. She is not putting on a show. She is not trying to draw attention to herself. She is just asking for permission to take care of someone she loves, and that simplicity, that purity in how she puts her mother's need above her own, hits Adrian like a punch to the gut. When was the last time he thought of someone other than himself? When was the last time he put someone else's needs first? The question rises in his mind and refuses to go away. The teacher finally reacts, placing a hand gently on the girl's shoulder. "Of course you can, sweetie," she says, but her voice sounds a bit forced, a little too loud. "You can take whatever you want for your mommy." Holly smiles then, the first genuine smile Adrian has seen from her, and begins to carefully place some snacks on her plate. She doesn't take much, just enough. She doesn't take the prettiest sweets, just the ones closest to her. She isn't thinking of herself. She's thinking about how to make the food last, how to bring something that can truly feed someone. Adrian watches her every move, and the strange feeling in his chest only grows stronger. There is something about this little girl, about this simple moment, that is stirring something inside him he can't explain. He looks around the party, at the tables overflowing with food, at the well-dressed adults talking about trivial matters, at the children playing without a care in the world. And then he looks again at Holly, who is carefully wrapping some snacks in a napkin as if they were the most precious treasure in the world. The contrast is stark, painful, too real to be ignored. For the first time in years, Adrian Blackwood feels he needs to do something, not to close a deal, not to impress someone, not to make money, just because it's the right thing to do. When Holly walks away from the table, holding the plate as if it were made of crystal, Adrian is still standing in the same spot. But something inside him has begun to change. Something he thought he had lost a long time ago, and it all started with the innocent request of a girl who put her love for her mother above her own hunger. 3 days. 3 days since the school party, and Adrian can't get that image out of his head. Holly standing there, with her empty plate, asking for permission to take food to her mother who hadn't eaten since the day before. He tried to go back to his normal routine, meetings, phone calls, decisions that move millions of dollars. But every time he sits at his mahogany desk, every time he looks out the window of his 40th floor office, he sees those clear blue eyes and hears that small, hesitant voice. "Can I take some for my mommy? She hasn't eaten since yesterday." Margaret, his assistant, has already commented that he seems different, more distracted, less focused during presentations. Yesterday, he interrupted a meeting about acquisitions to ask if anyone there had ever been truly hungry. The awkward silence that followed was answer enough. On Wednesday morning, Adrian makes a decision he can't fully explain himself. Instead of going straight to the office, he asks his driver to take him to Maple Elementary School. The school is different now. Without the party, without the loud music, without the colorful balloons. It's just an ordinary school, with children running around the playground during recess. Adrian stands outside the fence, watching, feeling a bit ridiculous but unable to leave. He is looking for her, for Holly, and then he sees her. She is sitting alone on one of the playground benches, watching other children play. She isn't joining in the games, not running or shouting like the others, just watching, with that same serious expression that caught Adrian's attention at the party. He approaches the school entrance and asks to speak with the principal. It's not hard to get access. The Blackwood name opens many doors, and his generous donation to the school the previous year is still remembered with gratitude. "Mr. Blackwood," the principal, Mrs. Patterson, greets him with a warm smile. "What a pleasure to see you again. How can we help you today?" "I'd like to speak with one of the students," Adrian says, feeling strangely nervous. "Holly, I don't know her last name. A little girl, light blonde hair. She was at the party on Saturday." "Ah, Holly Martinez." The principal's smile becomes a little more controlled. "May I ask the reason?" Adrian hesitates. How can he explain that he can't stop thinking about a 5-year-old girl? How can he say that something about her innocence has moved him in a way he doesn't understand? "I'd like to know more about her situation," he finally replies, "to see if I can help in any way." The principal studies him for a moment, then nods. "Holly is a good girl, very responsible for her age. Her mother, well, she's going through a tough time. If your intentions are genuine, Mr. Blackwood, I'm sure any help would be welcome. A few minutes later, Adrian finds himself on the school playground, walking toward the bench where Holly is still sitting. She recognizes him immediately, and her eyes light up with surprise. "Hi," she says simply, as if it were completely normal for a billionaire to show up at school recess. "Hi, Holly." Adrian sits next to her on the bench, suddenly unsure how to talk to a 5-year-old. "Remember me? From the party?" "Of course." She turns her body to face him, excited now. "You were standing alone, watching everyone. You looked kind of sad." The observation catches him off guard. Children really do see things that adults prefer to ignore. "Maybe I was a little," he admits. "And you? Why aren't you playing with the other kids?" Holly shrugs, swinging her legs that don't reach the ground. "Sometimes I get tired and, well, some games need snacks, and I didn't bring any today." Adrian's chest tightens again. He looks at the other children, many of them eating sandwiches or cookies, sharing treats brought from home. "Your mum couldn't pack a snack today." Holly is quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much she can tell him. My mommy is unemployed," she says finally, with the brutal honesty only children possess. "She goes out looking for work every day, but it's hard. She drops me off at school before she goes looking." Adrian swallows hard. "And at home? Is there food at home?" "Sometimes." Holly swings her legs more slowly now. Almost never, actually. "Mommy says I shouldn't talk about it at school, but you seem nice, and you helped me on Saturday by letting me take food for her." "I didn't do anything on Saturday." "Yes, you did." Holly smiles at him. "You didn't get mad when I asked. Some adults get weird when I talk about Mommy not having food. You just looked sad in a good way." Sad in a good way. Adrian doesn't even know what that means, but he feels that Holly hit the nail on the head. "Holly," he says, choosing his words carefully, "if I wanted to help you guys, do you think your mom would let me?" The girl looks thoughtful for a moment. "I don't know. Mommy has her pride. She always says we can manage on our own." But she hesitates, then continues in a whisper. "I might have to stop going to school soon. Mommy can't afford the school supplies, and she said it might be better if I stay home to help her." The idea of Holly leaving school, losing the chance to learn and grow, to have a normal childhood, makes something explode inside Adrian's chest. It's a feeling he's never felt before, a mix of anger, sadness, and a desperate need to solve the problem immediately. "That's not going to happen," he says, with a firmness that surprises even himself. Holly looks at him curiously. "How do you know?" "Because I won't let it." Adrian turns to face her completely. "Holly, take me to your mom. I want to meet you both properly. You want to go to my house?" Her eyes widen. "If you'll let me." Holly thinks for a moment, then jumps off the bench. "Okay, but our house is small and kind of messy, and there isn't much stuff. You won't mind?" "I won't mind any of that." And Adrian realizes he's telling the truth. The walk to Holly's house is a lesson in social geography that Adrian never had. They leave the tidier surroundings of the school and venture into streets that get progressively narrower, houses that get progressively smaller and closer together. Holly talks the whole way, telling him about school, her teachers, a cat that always shows up in her yard. She has a way of speaking that is both innocent and too mature for her age, as if she knows things about life that a 5-year-old shouldn't. "Sometimes Mommy cries when she thinks I'm not looking," she comments casually as they walk. "She always stops when she sees me, but I've seen her. She gets worried about money." Adrian feels a tightness in his chest. The natural way Holly talks about such heavy things leaves him speechless. "And you, do you get worried too?" "A little," Holly shrugs. "But Mommy always figures something out. She's really smart. She knows how to do a lot of things, but people don't want to give her a job." "Why do you think that is?" Holly stops walking for a moment, looking at him with that strange seriousness. "I don't know. Mommy says sometimes life is just hard for no reason, that we just have to keep trying." They resume their walk, and Adrian thinks about the girl's words. There's a wisdom there that bothers him, because it's a wisdom that comes from suffering. Holly shouldn't have to understand these things yet. "This is it," she says finally, stopping in front of a small wooden house painted white. the paint peeling in some places. There's a small garden out front, well kept but simple, with a few flowers that must have been planted with a lot of care and very little money. Adrian looks at the house and feels a strange familiarity. Something about it, about the neighborhood, about the way Holly runs up the porch steps. The feeling grows stronger as he approaches the door. It's as if he's been here before, or in a very similar place, as if some old memory is trying to form in his mind. "Mommy!" Holly knocks on the door excitedly. "Mommy! I brought a visitor." Footsteps approach from the other side of the door. Adrian feels a strange anxiety, as if he's about to discover something important. There's something in the air, a tension he can't explain. The door opens, and Adrian's world stops. On the other side of the door is a woman he hasn't seen in over 5 years. Light blonde hair tied back in a simple ponytail, blue eyes exactly like Holly's, a face that has aged a bit but is still beautiful. She is wearing simple, clean clothes, and there's an expression of exhaustion on her face that turns into pure shock when she sees him. For a moment, neither of them speaks. Time seems suspended as they stare at each other, 5 years of separation and hurt between them. "Adrian?" Her voice is an incredulous whisper. "Adrian, how did you end up here?" "Rachel." Rachel Martinez, who was once Rachel Thompson. The woman he loved when he was just a young programmer trying to build something from nothing. The woman who stayed with him through the difficult early years when his company was just an idea and they lived in a tiny apartment. The woman he left behind when success finally came and he decided he needed someone who fit better with his new life. Rachel. Holly's mother. "Rachel," he manages to say, his voice coming out hoarser than he expected. The silence stretches between them, heavy with unresolved history, unspoken words, and hurts that time has not erased. Adrian can see the pain in her eyes, but also pride. A lot of pride. The coincidence is absurd. Of all the children in the school, of all the families that might need help, he had to find exactly Rachel. Life has a cruel way of connecting dots that should have remained separate. Before either of them can say anything else, Holly steps between them with all the innocence in the world, oblivious to the tension in the air. "Mommy! He's the man from school," she says excitedly, pulling Adrian's hand closer to the door. "Remember I told you about the nice man from the party? It's him, and he said he can help us." "Isn't that so kind?" Rachel looks from her daughter to Adrian, and he can see the exact moment she connects the dots. The moment she realizes he went to the school specifically looking for Holly. The moment she understands that, somehow, fate has conspired to bring him back into their lives. "Do you know each other?" Holly asks, looking from one to the other with growing curiosity. Rachel swallows hard, then composes herself. When she speaks again, her voice is firm, controlled. "We knew each other a long time ago, sweetie." She turns to Adrian, and he can see all the emotions passing across her face. Surprise, pain, anger, embarrassment. But what prevails is pride. The same stubborn pride he remembers from when they were young. "We're fine," she says, lifting her chin and crossing her arms defensively. "You don't need to worry." But Adrian can see they are not fine. He can see it in the overly simple clothes, in the way Rachel is visibly thinner, in the small house behind her that probably has an empty refrigerator. He can see it in the way Holly clings to her mother's leg, as if trying to protect her. And most of all, he can see it in his own feelings, in the way his chest aches looking at them, in the way every instinct in his body is screaming for him to do something, anything, to help. The irony of the situation is not lost on him. Holly, the child who touched his heart at the school party, is the daughter of the only woman he ever truly loved. The woman he abandoned when his life changed, the woman who is now struggling alone, clearly in hardship, too proud to accept help, especially from him. Adrian didn't sleep. All night he lay in his penthouse bedroom, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Rachel's expression when she said, "Why, we're fine." The wounded pride in her voice, the way Holly clung to her mother's leg, as if protecting her. They were not fine. He knew it. Rachel knew he knew. And yet, she preferred to lie rather than accept any kind of help from him. He couldn't blame her. The hours passed slowly, marked by the digital clock on the nightstand. 2 in the morning, 3, 4. Adrian got up several times, went to the window to watch the sleeping city below, went back to bed, tried to force the sleep that wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Holly asking to take food to her mother. He saw Rachel, thinner, more tired, pretending everything was okay. He saw the small house, the garden cared for with love, but without resources. At 5 in the morning, he gave up trying to sleep. The next morning, Adrian cancels all his meetings. For the second time in a week, Margaret looks at him as if he's gone crazy. Mr. Blackwood, the meeting with the Japanese investors. Reschedule. But they came especially to Margaret. Adrian stops arranging the papers on his desk and looks at her directly. Reschedule everything. I have something more important to take care of. She opens her mouth to protest, then closes it. In 5 years of working for him, she has never seen Adrian put anything above business. He lives and breathes work, or at least he used to. May I ask what kind of emergency this is? She asks carefully. Personal, Adrian replies, grabbing his car keys. Very personal. An hour later, Adrian is at the supermarket nearest to Rachel's house. He has never shopped alone. He's always had people for that. But today is different. Today, he pushes the cart through the aisles, choosing each item with care. The first thing he grabs is rice, a large bag that will last for many meals. Then beans, pasta, basic products that form the foundation of a diet. He's never had to think about this before, never had to calculate how many meals a bag of rice could provide. Now he's doing just that, thinking about efficiency, nutrition, how to make the money stretch as far as possible. Milk, eggs, fresh bread. He picks the softest bread, imagining Holly biting into a sandwich in the morning. Fruits she will like, bright red apples, perfectly ripe bananas, sweet grapes, cookies, because every child should have cookies at home. In the meat section, he stands for a long time. Meat is expensive, but it's protein Holly needs to grow strong. He picks up a good piece for stew, another for making burgers. Chicken breast, versatile and nutritious. Fresh vegetables, non-perishable canned goods. Basic spices. Adrian keeps filling the cart, thinking about each purchase, imagining Rachel cooking, Holly eating with appetite. The idea makes him smile for the first time in days. An elderly lady in the aisle watches him with curiosity. A clearly wealthy man, in an expensive suit, choosing basic food with the care of someone who knows need. She must be wondering what the story is there. At the checkout, the cashier also looks curiously at the well-dressed man buying basic food, with a beautiful wicker basket he picked up in the gift section. Is it a gift? She asks, making small talk as she scans the items. Something like that, Adrian replies, smiling. That's nice. I'm sure whoever receives it will be very happy. He hopes so. It's 7 in the morning when Adrian parks his car on Rachel's street. It's too early to knock, but not for what he has planned. He watches the house for a few minutes. Everything is quiet. The living room curtains are closed, but there's a faint light in the kitchen. Rachel must be awake, getting ready for the day. Holly is probably still sleeping. Adrian takes the basket from the back seat. It's heavy, full of things they need. He has arranged everything carefully. The items that spoil faster at the bottom, the non-perishables on top, all arranged to look like a gift. He walks to the porch carefully, trying not to make a sound. The wooden floorboards creak a little under his steps, but not enough to wake anyone. He places the basket right in front of the door, where it can't be missed when they open it. Along with it, he leaves a simple card on which he wrote only, "For Holly and Rachel, with care." Then he runs off like a teenager playing a prank, hiding behind his car to see the reaction. He feels a bit ridiculous. A 32-year-old billionaire hiding behind a BMW, but he can't resist. 15 minutes later, the door opens. It's Rachel. She's in a faded blue robe, her blonde hair in a messy bun, clearly having just woken up. She has a cup of coffee in her hand, probably weak coffee, stretched to last more days. She looks around for someone, then looks down and sees the basket. Adrian watches her expression change. Surprise at first, her eyes widening when she sees all the contents. confusion as she looks around, trying to understand where it came from. Then something like irritation when she picks up the card, reads it and understands who left it there. Rachel stands for a long moment, holding the card, staring at the basket as if it were a poisonous snake. She crosses her arms, shakes her head, looks at the street one more time, clearly looking for Adrian. He ducks lower behind the car, waiting, holding his breath. "Mommy!" Holly's voice comes from inside the house, sleepy and curious. "What is it?" "Nothing, sweetie. Go back inside." "But you're just standing at the door. What's that on the floor?" Adrian can imagine Holly appearing beside her mother, still in her pajamas, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "It's a basket," Holly shouts, all sleepiness vanishing from her voice, "with lots of stuff. Where did it come from?" Rachel hesitates, clearly not knowing what to answer. "Can I see what's inside? Please." Adrian hears Rachel's defeated sigh before she answers, "You can." What follows are the most excited exclamations Adrian has ever heard. Holly discovers each item as if they were treasures. "Mommy, look, apples and bananas and—" "Wow, cookies!" Her voice gets higher and higher with excitement. "And milk, real milk, not the powdered kind." Adrian has to cover his mouth to keep from laughing too loud and giving himself away. "Who was so nice to us, Mommy?" Holly asks. I'm not sure, sweetie. But it must be someone really, really good. Look at all this stuff. We'll be able to eat well for a long time." The innocence in Holly's voice, the way she sees it as pure kindness, makes Adrian's chest ache. "Let's bring it inside," Rachel says finally, her voice tired and resigned. A few minutes later, they go inside with the basket. Adrian waits a little longer, listening to the muffled sounds of Holly exploring every item, then leaves, satisfied. In the following days, Adrian develops a routine. He stops by the school at recess, talks to Holly, then walks her home. He never goes inside. Rachel has made it clear he's not welcome in the house, but he stays in the yard, playing with the girl. Holly loves having someone to play with. She teaches Adrian games he had forgotten existed. Hopscotch drawn with chalk on the concrete floor, hide and seek behind the few trees in the small yard, made-up stories about brave princesses and kind dragons. "You really know how to play," Holly comments one afternoon, after Adrian did surprisingly well in a game of guessing animals. "Most adults forget how—" "Maybe I've learned again," Adrian replies, smiling. "From who?" "From you." Holly smiles back, that pure, uncomplicated smile that only children can give. It's during one of these afternoons, a week after the basket, that Holly says something that deeply moves Adrian. They are sitting on the grass in the small yard. Holly has just shown him a drawing she made at school, a happy family of 3 people holding hands. A tall man, a woman with yellow hair, and a little girl in the middle. "Who are these people?" Adrian asks, though he has a suspicion. "You, me, and Mommy," Holly replies naturally, as if it were obvious. Adrian's heart skips a beat. "Why did you draw us together?" Holly shrugs, playing with the grass. "Because it would be nice if we were a real family." Before Adrian can fully process those words, she continues. "You're nice," she says suddenly, looking at him with those sincere blue eyes. "I like you. I like you a lot." The words are simple, innocent, but they hit Adrian like a punch to the chest. When was the last time someone said they liked him without wanting something in return, with no interest in his business, no interest in his money? "I like you too, Holly," he replies, his voice coming out more emotional than he expected. "A lot. Will you keep coming here?" There's a vulnerability in the question that breaks his heart. "If you want me to." "I do. Always." Holly smiles, then gets serious. "Mommy sometimes gets sad when you leave. Why don't you two talk more?" The question is innocent, but it cuts right to the painful point. "It's complicated," Adrian says finally. "Did you do something bad to her?" The brutal honesty of children never ceases to amaze him. "I did," he admits. "I hurt your mom a long time ago. She still hasn't forgiven me." Holly looks thoughtful, pulling up blades of grass and making a small pile. "What kind of bad thing? How do you explain to a 5-year-old that he abandoned her mother when his life got better? How do you say he traded true love for ambition?" I left her when she needed me most, he says finally. I was selfish. I only thought about myself. And are you sorry? Every day. Then why don't you say you're sorry? If only it were that simple. Adrian looks at the house where he can see Rachel watching from the kitchen window. Always watching, always caring, always keeping her distance. It's easy to be good with you, he says to Holly, choosing his words carefully. You have a pure heart. You see the best in people. But with your mum, it's different. I hurt her badly in the past. She has every reason not to trust me. Holly looks at him with a surprising intensity for someone so small. Sometimes Mommy cries in the bathroom, she says softly, as if telling a secret. She thinks I can't hear, but I can. She says your name sometimes. Adrian's heart stops for a second. She says my name. She gets mad and sad at the same time. I don't get it. Adrian looks at the window again. Rachel is still there, watching. When their eyes meet, she doesn't immediately look away as she usually does. For a moment, they just look at each other through the distance and the glass. He can see the internal struggle on her face, the part that wants to hate him fighting with the part that still remembers what they had. The part that wants to protect Holly fighting with the part that sees how happy her daughter is with him around. She likes you too, Holly says, following his gaze, just in the complicated adult way, the complicated adult way. If only things could be as simple as in the eyes of a 5-year-old child. That night, after Adrian leaves and Holly is asleep, Rachel allows herself to cry. She sits in the small kitchen, surrounded by the groceries Adrian left on her doorstep a week ago. Enough food for 2 whole weeks, food she could never afford to buy. The pantry, which had always been a painful reminder of her limitation, is now full. Her pride tells her to return everything, to take it all back to him and say she doesn't need charity, to prove she can take care of her daughter on her own without help from anyone, especially not him. But a mother's love is stronger than pride. Holly has eaten well these past few days, smiled more, played more, stayed up later at night, excited to talk about her games with the nice man from the yard. She drew a family, the 3 of them together, and stuck it on the fridge with an old magnet. Rachel looks at the drawing now, tears blurring her vision. Holly drew Adrian taller than he really is, and herself in the middle, holding both their hands. Everyone is smiling, and Rachel knows that her daughter's happiness is more important than her wounded pride. Still, the tears come. Tears of relief for having food in the pantry, for not having to calculate every penny. Tears of shame for needing this help, for not being able to properly provide for her own daughter. Tears of anger that Adrian has reappeared in their lives right now, when she needs it most and can least refuse. That he found Holly of all people, that he touched her daughter's heart, and tears of something she doesn't want to admit, an old longing that insists on hurting even after all these years, a part of her that still remembers what it was like to be loved by him, what it was like to believe they would build a life together. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand and goes to check on Holly, who is sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. Her belly isn't empty. She isn't worried if there will be breakfast the next day. Rachel gently touches her daughter's face and makes a silent decision. Her pride can wait. Holly has to come first. Always. Outside, Adrian is sitting in his car watching the dark house. He saw the kitchen light go out a few minutes ago, saw Rachel pass by Holly's bedroom window. He's not quite sure why he's still there, not sure why he can't just leave right after Holly goes inside for dinner. Maybe it's because, for the first time in years, he feels genuinely useful. Not for closing deals or making money, but for making a child smile. For putting food on the table of someone who needs it. For trying, however inadequately, to fix at least a part of what he broke in the past. His phone vibrates. Margaret, probably, with another crisis that needs his immediate attention. There's always a crisis. There's always something more important waiting. But Adrian turns off the phone without looking and finally drives away. Today, nothing is more important than this. And maybe it never will be again. 3 weeks had passed since Adrian started showing up in Rachel's yard, and the routine had turned into something none of the 3 could imagine living without anymore. Every day at 3:30 in the afternoon, Holly runs out of school looking for him. Sometimes Adrian is already waiting, leaning against the gate. Other times she finds him walking toward the house, but he is always there. "Adrian!" she shouts, running to him with her backpack bouncing on her back. "Today the teacher said I made the best drawing in the class." "Really?" Adrian smiles, taking the heavy backpack off her shoulders. "Can I see it?" And so their afternoons begin. Holly shows him her schoolwork, tells him about her friends, complains about the cafeteria food that she no longer has to eat, because she has a packed lunch from home. Adrian listens to everything with an attention he never gave to any business meeting. Today is Friday, and Holly is especially excited because there's no school on the weekend. That means more time to play. "Are you coming tomorrow?" she asks, as they walk down the street that has become familiar to Adrian. "If you want me to." "I always want you to." Holly jumps with joy. "I'm going to make more drawings tonight. Drawings of us." This has become her new obsession, drawing the two of them together in every imaginable situation. Playing in the park, eating ice cream, watching TV, even flying in space as astronauts. Holly has taped all of them to her bedroom wall, creating an art gallery that tells the story of a friendship growing every day. When they arrive at the house, Rachel is in the small garden, watering the flowers. She waves at them, but, as always, keeps her distance. Adrian has learned not to approach her directly. It's a game of patience he is willing to play for as long as it takes. "Hi, Mommy." Holly runs to Rachel and hugs her. "Adrian came again." "I see that," Rachel replies, glancing briefly at him before turning her attention back to the plants. Adrian gets the message. Yard, yes. House, no. He accepts the rules because being near Holly is worth everything. They settle on the grass in the yard, and Holly takes a carefully folded piece of paper from her backpack. "Look what I made in art class." She unfolds the paper, revealing a colorful drawing. It's her and Adrian sitting under a tree, and she's reading a book to him. "The teacher said I'm very good at drawing people." Adrian takes the drawing and studies it seriously, as if it were an important document. It's perfect. "You're very talented." "Do you really think so?" "I'm sure of it. Can I keep this one?" Holly's eyes sparkle. "You can, but are you really going to keep it? You won't throw it away?" The question is innocent, but it hits Adrian in the chest. How can a 5-year-old be afraid that her drawings will be thrown away? "Never," he says with conviction. "I'm going to put it on the wall in my office. That way, every time I'm working, I'll remember my favorite artist." Holly throws herself into his arms for a tight hug. Adrian closes his eyes and feels something he took a while to recognize. This is what it must be like to truly love someone. Without expecting anything in return, just wanting to see the person happy. "Guys, what should we play today?" Holly asks, pulling away from the hug. "You choose." "How about we make up a story, our story, just for us?" "What do you mean?" Holly sits on the grass, cross-legged, with that serious expression she makes when she's thinking about something important. "Well, in the school stories, there's always a princess, a prince, a castle. But what if we made up a different story? With normal people, who don't live in castles. People like us." "Yeah, people like us." Adrian sits beside her, interested. "All right. How does our story begin?" Holly closes her eyes, thinking. Once upon a time, there was a girl who lived in a small house with her mother. They were very happy, but sometimes the girl was lonely because her mother had to work a lot. Adrian feels a pang in his chest. Holly is telling her own story. "And then?" he asks softly. "And then a nice man appeared who liked to play with her, and the girl wasn't lonely anymore." "And what happened next?" Holly opens her eyes and looks directly at him. "I don't know yet. We're still living that part." The answer is so profound and true that Adrian is left speechless. They really are still living that part, writing the story as it happens. "And how do you want the story to end?" he asks. "With everyone happy, forever." Forever. Adrian hopes it's possible. They spend the next afternoon creating more chapters of the story, each one more elaborate than the last. Holly adds details like a talking cat, based on the cat that appears in the yard, and a magical garden where colorful flowers grow, clearly inspired by her mother's small but well-tended garden. While they play, Adrian notices that Rachel appears at the kitchen window more often. She tries to be discreet, but he notices. She stands there watching them, and there's something in her expression he can't quite decipher. Is it joy? Fear? Sadness? Maybe a mix of everything. When the sun starts to set and Holly has to go inside for dinner, she always asks the same question. Are you coming tomorrow? If you want me to, I always want you to. And then she runs inside, leaving Adrian alone in the yard for a few minutes. It's in these moments that he feels Rachel's eyes on him. She continues to watch from the window, and he pretends not to notice, but he does notice, and he wonders what she's thinking. Inside the house, Rachel is indeed watching. Every afternoon she finds an excuse to be in the kitchen or the living room where she can see the yard. She tells herself she's just making sure Holly is safe, but the truth is more complicated. She watches how Adrian plays with Holly, how he listens to every word she says with genuine attention, how he gets on the floor to play, not caring if his expensive clothes get dirty, how he smiles when Holly laughs, and it scares her. Not because Holly is happy. Holly deserves all the happiness in the world. What scares Rachel is the intensity of this affection, the way Adrian looks at her daughter as if she were the most important person in the world, because she has seen that look before. Years ago, when Adrian looked at her that way, and she remembers how much it hurt when he just stopped. China, is he going to disappear again? She catches herself thinking as she watches the two of them invent a new game. What if he suddenly gets tired of this? What if something more interesting comes up in his life? The question torments her because she knows Holly is already attached. Very attached. The girl talks about him all the time, draws him on every piece of paper, plans games all week just waiting for the weekend to arrive. If Adrian disappears from their lives now, it will break Holly's heart. And Rachel doesn't know if she can bear to see her daughter suffer because of him again. Yes, again. Because Rachel remembers the time when Holly was too young to understand, but would ask where her daddy was. Rachel never knew what to answer. "Mommy!" Holly's voice interrupts her thoughts. "Why don't you come play with us?" Rachel realizes she was so lost in thought that she didn't notice her daughter coming into the kitchen. "I'm making dinner, sweetie." "But Adrian asked if you wanted to play too." Rachel looks out the window. Adrian is standing in the middle of the yard, clearly waiting for an answer. When their eyes meet, he gives a shy wave. "Maybe another day," she replies, looking away. Holly pouts but doesn't insist. She runs back to the yard, shouting, "She said maybe another day." Rachel sighs. Another day has become her standard answer to almost everything related to Adrian. In the fourth week, something changes. It's a rainy afternoon, and Holly is disappointed because she won't be able to play in the yard. She stays glued to the window, looking for Adrian. "He's not coming today," Rachel says gently. "It's raining too hard." "But he always comes," Holly insists. "He promised." 10 minutes later, Adrian appears running in the rain, completely soaked, carrying a colorful umbrella. "I told you," Holly shouts, jumping with joy. Rachel watches him stop on the porch, shaking himself off like a wet dog, and feels something strange in her chest. He really came. In the rain, without a second thought. Holly opens the door and runs out to hug him. "You're all wet." "I am. But I brought this." He shows her the umbrella. "I thought we could play a game of dancing in the rain." "Really?" "Really?" "If your mum lets us." They both look at Rachel, who is standing at the door. Holly with pleading eyes, Adrian with a hopeful expression. "You'll get sick," she says, but her voice lacks conviction. "Please, Mommy, just for a little bit." Rachel looks at her daughter, then at the soaked Adrian on her porch, then at the rain that is letting up. And then she makes a decision that surprises her. "Come inside," she says, stepping away from the door. "You'll catch pneumonia out there." Holly's eyes widen. Adrian looks surprised too. "Come in, quickly, before I change my mind." It's the first time Adrian has been inside the house. It's small, simple, but extremely organized and clean. There are Holly's drawings everywhere, a few plants in the living room, old but well cared for furniture. "Sit there," Rachel points to the sofa. "I'll get a towel." When she returns, Adrian is sitting on the edge of the sofa, clearly nervous. Holly is beside him, chattering about the house's decor. "Thank you," he says as Rachel hands him the towel. She nods and sits in the armchair opposite, keeping a safe distance. For a few minutes, no one speaks. Holly fills the silence by talking about a movie she watched at school, but Rachel and Adrian occasionally glance at each other, like two cautious animals. Finally, Holly announces she's going to get her new drawings from her room, leaving the two of them alone. The silence becomes heavy. "Rachel?" Adrian begins. "No," she interrupts, holding up a hand. "If you're going to be here, if you're going to be a part of Holly's life, I need to say a few things." He nods, waiting. Rachel takes a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "You're different," she says finally. "I see you with her, and you're caring about someone other than yourself. That's new." Adrian opens his mouth to respond, but she continues. "But I still have a lot of hurt, Adrian, a lot. After your life changed, you forgot your origins. You forgot where you came from. You forgot the people who supported you when you had nothing." The words come out with an old pain held in for years. "You became someone else, someone I didn't know anymore. And when I tried to talk to you about it, you said I didn't understand your new world, that I couldn't keep up." Adrian lowers his head, the memories hurting like open wounds. "I know," he whispers. "Even so." Rachel hesitates, then continues. "Holly is happy with you around, happier than I've ever seen her. And for that, thank you for the help." Adrian looks up at her, surprised by the unexpected gratitude. "I wanted to do more for you," he says, his voice thick with emotion. "I feel something with Holly that I've never felt before. It's like she reminded me of who I was before everything got complicated." "And who were you?" Adrian thinks about the question, trying to find the right words. Someone who dreamed of making a difference in people's lives. Not just making money. Someone who believed that success was worthless if you had no one to share it with. Rachel studies him for a long moment. "And now I want to be that someone again, for her, for you." Before Rachel can answer, Holly runs back in with a stack of drawings. "Look how many I made." She spreads the papers on the floor. "This is me, you, and Mommy having a picnic. This is us at the park. Hand this one." As Holly shows each drawing, Rachel and Adrian look at each other over the girl's head. Something is changing between them. There is still pain, still fear, but there is also a small, fragile possibility. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, some broken things can be fixed. When Adrian finally leaves, it's dark and the rain has completely stopped. Holly says goodbye with her usual hug, but this time he also waves to Rachel. "Thank you," he says simply. "For what?" "For letting me in." After he leaves, Rachel stands at the window, watching his car's lights disappear down the street. Holly has already gone to bed, happy to have spent the whole afternoon with the two adults she loves most in the world. And for the first time in 5 years, Rachel allows herself to think that maybe Adrian really has changed. She just hopes it's true. Because if it's not, this time it won't be just her heart that breaks. 2 weeks after the conversation in the living room, everything had changed. Adrian no longer needed to wait to be invited in. The front door became familiar under his footsteps, and Holly was no longer surprised to see him sitting at the small kitchen table when she came home from school. "Hi, Adrian!" she would shout, throwing her backpack on the floor and running to hug him. It had become a daily ritual, that tight hug that made Adrian's whole day worthwhile. "Hi, little artist. How was school today?" "Good. The teacher said my garden drawing was beautiful. Want to see?" And so another afternoon would begin in the simple house that had become Adrian's favorite place in the whole world. Rachel is in the kitchen preparing a simple snack for Holly. Bread with jam, a glass of milk, some cut-up fruit. Basic things, but made with care and now without the constant worry of whether there would be enough food for the next day. "Can I help?" Adrian asks, getting up from his chair. "You don't have to," Rachel replies automatically, but her voice no longer has the harshness of the early days. "I know, but I want to help." Rachel hesitates for a second, then hands him the knife and the apples. "You can cut these. Holly likes them in small pieces." It's a simple gesture, but it means a lot. She's letting him participate in the routine, in the small things that are part of Holly's daily care. Adrian cuts the apples carefully, remembering the preference Rachel mentioned. Holly sits at the table between them, chattering about her day at school while she eats her snack. And then Sarah said she was bringing chocolate fudge balls tomorrow because it's her birthday. And I said I've had fudge balls too, and she was surprised because she thought only she knew what fudge balls were. Adrian listens to every word, asking questions at the right moments, laughing at the funny parts. Rachel watches it all from the corner of her eye, pretending to be busy organizing the kitchen. "Adrian," Holly says suddenly, in the middle of a story about gym class, "are you having dinner with us tonight?" The question catches both adults off guard. Adrian looks at Rachel, waiting for her reaction. "Holly," Rachel begins, "please, Mommy, he can, can't he? We have enough food now." The last sentence is said with an innocence that makes Adrian's heart ache. Holly grew up knowing that food is something that can run out, that it needs to be rationed, that there isn't always enough. Rachel looks at Adrian, then at her daughter, then back at Adrian. "If you'd like to stay," she says finally. "I'd love to." And so Adrian stays for dinner, and the next day too, and the day after that. Within a week it became routine. Adrian arrives around lunchtime on weekends or in the late afternoon on weekdays, and just stays. He helps prepare the food, listens to Holly talk about her day, chats with Rachel about simple, everyday things. It's not glamorous. It has nothing to do with the sophisticated life Adrian led before, but it's real in a way he had forgotten existed. "Do you know how to make pasta?" Holly asks one Thursday, as the three of them are in the kitchen deciding what to cook. "I do," Adrian replies. "Want me to make it?" "Yes, Mommy always makes it the same way." "I want to see how you do it." Rachel steps away from the stove, making room for him. It's another small gesture of trust, letting him take control of the kitchen. Adrian cooks the pasta, while Holly sits on the counter, asking questions about every step. Rachel watches them both, a soft expression on her face. "Why do you put salt in the water?" Holly asks. "To make the pasta more flavorful." "And why do you stir it like that?" "So it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pot." "And why do you—" "Holly," Rachel interrupts, laughing. "Let the man cook in peace." But Adrian is smiling. "It doesn't bother me. I like her questions." When they sit down for dinner, Holly insists on sitting between them. "To this is better," she explains. "I can talk to both of you at the same time." The pasta was simple but delicious. They eat while talking about trivial things, the weather, school, the cat that appeared in the yard that morning, normal conversations of a normal family. Rachel realizes that's exactly what is happening. They are behaving like a family. And the scariest part is that it feels natural. After dinner, Holly convinces them to play a card game she learned at school. It's simple, childish, but the three of them have fun as if it were the most important thing in the world. "I won!" Holly shouts when she runs out of cards. "Did you cheat?" Adrian asks, feigning suspicion. "No," Holly laughs. "I'm just really good." "It's true," Rachel agrees. "She's always been clever with games." Adrian looks at Rachel, and for a moment they share a genuine smile. No hurt, no tension, just two adults who care about the same child and want to see her happy. When Adrian finally leaves, Holly is already asleep. Rachel walks him to the door. "Thank you," she says softly. "For what?" "For having dinner with us, for playing cards, for being here." Adrian stops at the door, turning to look at her. "Thank you for letting me stay. Holly likes having you here." "And you?" The question slips out before he can stop himself. Rachel is quiet for a long moment. "I'm getting used to it," she finally replies. It's not a declaration of love, not even complete forgiveness, but it's something, it's a start. As the days go by, Adrian's presence in the house becomes increasingly natural. He knows where Rachel keeps the plates. He knows Holly likes orange juice for breakfast. He knows the stove takes a while to heat up. He brings small gifts sometimes. Nothing extravagant. A new book for Holly, flowers for Rachel, different ingredients to cook together. Things that are part of a shared life. Holly blossoms with this constant attention. She laughs more, plays more, talks non-stop about everything and anything. She knows she has someone who will listen, who will be interested in the small things in her life. Rachel watches all of this and feels a complex mix of emotions: joy at seeing Holly so happy, gratitude for finally having help with daily responsibilities, fear of getting used to something that might not last. But mostly, she feels hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, they can build something new on the pieces of what was broken in the past. On a Friday night, after another quiet dinner, Holly is helping dry the dishes when she asks, "Is Adrian going to live here with us?" The question catches both adults off guard. Rachel nearly drops the plate she was washing. "Why would you ask that, sweetie?" Rachel asks, trying to keep her voice calm. "Because he's always here, and he likes us. And we like him." Holly says it as if it's the most obvious thing in the world, as if families are just made up of people who like each other and decide to stay together. If only it were that simple. Adrian and Rachel look at each other over Holly's head, both unsure of what to say. "It's complicated, Holly," Rachel says finally. "Why do adults always say things are complicated?" Holly sighs. "It seems easy to me. Maybe it is easy. Maybe it's the adults who complicate things with fear, pride, and past hurts. But that's a conversation for another day. For now, it's enough that Adrian is part of their routine, that he is present, constant, reliable. It's enough that Holly has discovered what it's like to have someone who never leaves when she needs them most. And it's enough that Rachel has started to believe that some people really can change. Rachel couldn't sleep all night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the last few weeks. Adrian had become part of their lives in a way she never thought possible. He was there every day, playing with Holly, helping with chores, being a father, even without knowing he was one. The truth weighed on Rachel's chest like a stone. 5 years of keeping this secret, 5 years of raising Holly alone, 5 years of wondering if she did the right thing by not telling him. When Adrian left her, she was 2 months pregnant. But he had already made his choice. His new life had no room for what they had been. How could she tell him she was expecting his child? At the time, Rachel had tried to call a few times. She even dialed his number but always hung up before he could answer. Pride stopped her. The hurt made her think he didn't deserve to know. The fear of being rejected once again paralyzed her. When Holly was born, Rachel looked into those clear blue eyes, identical to Adrian's, and almost called him. Almost. But then she remembered his words, "You couldn't keep up with my new world." And she kept the secret for 1 more day. After that, it got harder. How could she explain hiding the pregnancy? How could she justify years of silence? How could she say that the 5-year-old daughter he was learning to love was in fact his own? But now Adrian was back, and he was proving to be a different man from the one he was 5 years ago. A man who deserved to know the truth. A man Holly deserved to have as a father. Pride, fear, hurt. All of this made her decide to raise Holly alone at the time. But now, seeing how he was with her, how he cared, how he loved without even knowing she was his blood, Rachel knew she couldn't hide it any longer. The next morning, Holly went to school as usual. Adrian came to pick her up, as usual. They had lunch together, played in the yard, did homework. Everything normal, everything routine. But Rachel knew today would be different. She had made her decision. Today she would tell him everything. All day, she rehearsed the words in her head. "Adrian, I need to tell you something. Remember when we broke up? Holly is your daughter." No version sounded easy. After dinner, while Holly was taking a bath and getting ready for bed, Rachel gathered her courage. "Adrian," she said, her voice coming out quieter than she intended, "I need to talk to you." He was drying the dishes, a task he had naturally taken on in recent weeks. There was something domestic and comforting about seeing him there, in the simple kitchen, being part of the routine as if he had always belonged there. "Of course. What about?" Rachel took a deep breath. There was no easy way to say it. "Let's sit in the living room." Adrian could tell from her tone that it was serious. He put the dish towel on the counter and followed her to the small living room. They sat on the sofa, the same place where they had their first real conversation weeks ago, but this time the tension in the air was different. Denser, more charged with expectation. "Adrian?" Rachel began, then stopped, running her hands through her hair nervously. "You're scaring me," he said gently. "What is it?" Rachel glanced toward the hallway, where she could hear Holly humming in the bath. Her daughter, who didn't know that the man who had become her favorite person in the world was her biological father. The child, who had finally found the father figure she had always dreamed of. "Remember when we broke up?" she asked finally. Adrian winced, as if the memory caused him physical pain. "I remember. It was the biggest mistake of my life. If I could go back in time. Back then I was..." The words got stuck in her throat. 5 years of silence are not easily broken. 5 years of lying to herself that she did the right thing. "You were what, Rachel?" She closed her eyes, took a deep breath and said it all at once. "Adrian, Holly is your daughter." The silence that followed was deafening. Adrian sat completely still, as if his brain had simply stopped working. He looked at Rachel, then toward the hallway where Holly was still singing, then back at Rachel. "What?" he whispered, as if unsure he had heard correctly. "When you left me, I was 2 months pregnant. I didn't know how to tell you. You had already made it clear you wanted a new, different life. How was I supposed to tell you I was expecting your child?" Adrian remained silent, processing the information. Rachel could see the emotions crossing his face. Shock, confusion. Then something that looked like deep pain mixed with something she couldn't identify. "Holly is my daughter," he repeated, as if testing the words on his tongue. "She is. For 5 years. For 5 years I raised her alone. Yes." Adrian put his face in his hands, covering his eyes. His shoulders trembled slightly. When he spoke, his voice was choked. "My God, Rachel. My God. She's my daughter. That's why," Rachel continued, her own voice trembling, the words tumbling out in a nervous stream. "That's why I need to know, Adrian. If you're not ready to take on this role, I'd rather you leave before she gets hurt." Adrian took his hands away from his face and looked at her, his eyes shining with unshed tears. There was something in his expression that Rachel had never seen before. An intensity, a fierce determination. "Leave," he repeated, incredulous. "Rachel, are you telling me that Holly, that amazing, smart, caring little girl, is my daughter?" "Yes." "And you think I would want to leave?" His voice grew firmer, more intense, charged with an emotion that made Rachel's heart race. "I am never leaving you again," he said, with a conviction that made Rachel's heart pound. "Never again. I want to acknowledge my daughter and be present for every moment of her life." The words came out like a sacred promise, an oath Adrian made not just to Rachel, but to himself. Before Rachel could respond, they heard the pitter-patter of bare feet running down the hall. "Mommy, we're out of shampoo," Holly shouted, appearing in the living room in pink pajamas, her wet hair dripping on the floor. She stopped when she saw the two of them on the sofa, with serious, emotional expressions. "Are you guys fighting?" she asked, worried, her voice growing small. Rachel and Adrian looked at each other. It was time. There was no going back. "Dino, sweetie," Rachel said softly, holding out her arms. "Come here, we have something important to tell you." Holly approached slowly, clearly sensing that something big was happening. There was a tension in the air that even a 5-year-old could feel. Rachel pulled her onto her lap, and Adrian moved closer to them on the sofa. "Holly," Rachel began, choosing her words carefully. "Remember how you always asked about your dad?" "Uh-huh." Holly nodded seriously. "Well, he's here." Holly looked confused, glancing from Rachel to Adrian, then back to Rachel. "Where?" "Here," Rachel pointed gently to Adrian. "Adrian is your dad, sweetie." Holly was silent for a long moment, processing the information with the seriousness of a 5-year-old trying to understand something that would change her life forever. She looked at Adrian, studying his face as if seeing it for the first time, as if she were looking for similarities, for signs that would confirm what she had just heard. Then she looked directly at him, her clear blue eyes meeting his. "You're my dad?" she asked, as if wanting confirmation before fully believing. "I am," Adrian answered, his voice barely a whisper, choked with emotion. "If you want me to be." Holly continued to stare at him, and Adrian held his breath. What was she thinking? How did she feel knowing this? Would she be confused, upset that she hadn't known sooner? And then, without warning, she jumped from Rachel's lap and threw herself into Adrian's arms with all the strength of her small body. "I knew you were special," she said, hugging his neck tightly, as if she would never let go. "I knew it." Adrian hugged her back as if he would never let go, the tears finally streaming down his face without any attempt to control them. "My daughter," he whispered against her wet hair. "My little girl." Rachel watched them embrace and felt as if a gigantic weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Finally, after 5 years of carrying this secret alone, the truth was finally out. "Can I call you Dad?" Holly asked, pulling back a little to look directly into his eyes. "You can," he replied, smiling through his tears. "I would love that." "Dad," she tested the word, smiling. "Dad. I like it a lot." And then she laughed, that pure, crystal-clear laugh that always warmed Rachel's heart. "Now I have a dad just like the other kids at school." In the weeks that followed, everything changed, and yet everything stayed the same. Adrian immediately sought a lawyer to begin the process of acknowledging paternity. Not out of suspicion. One look at Holly was enough to see the obvious resemblances between them, but because he wanted everything to be official, he wanted his name on her birth certificate. He wanted her to be legally, officially recognized as his daughter. "Will it hurt?" Holly asked when Adrian explained they needed to do a DNA test. "No, sweetie. It's just a little bit of saliva. Easier than brushing your teeth." "Okay then, but I already know you're my dad." "How do you know?" Holly thought for a moment, making that serious face she always made when reflecting on something important. "Because when you're here, everything is better. And dads do that, right? They make everything better." Adrian had to turn away so she wouldn't see the tears in his eyes. The legal process was surprisingly fast. The test confirmed what everyone already knew. Holly was unequivocally Adrian's daughter. In a few weeks, all the documents were signed, and Adrian was officially registered as Holly's father. The day they received the papers, Holly insisted on seeing the official document. "Look, Mummy, it says right here that Adrian is my dad." "It sure does," Rachel confirmed, smiling at the pure joy on her daughter's face. "Now it's official," Holly declared solemnly, holding the paper as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. "Now we're a real family." A real family. The words echoed in Adrian's heart with a surprising intensity. The first time Holly called him Dad in public was on a normal Monday, at school. Adrian had gone to pick her up, as he always did. It was a routine he had grown to love, waiting at the school gate, seeing her face light up when she saw him, hearing about her day during the walk home. Holly ran out of the classroom when she saw him waiting at the gate, as she always did. But this time was different. "Dad!" she yelled, running towards him with her backpack bouncing on her back. "Dad, the teacher said I can introduce my family in class tomorrow." The word came out so naturally, so spontaneously, that for a moment Adrian couldn't move. Dad. She had called him Dad, in public, in front of other children and parents, without hesitation, without shame. Dad. The tears came before he could control them. Right there at the school gate in front of everyone, he began to cry. "Dad, why are you crying?" Holly asked, concerned, stopping in front of him. Adrian knelt down to her level, placing his hands on her small shoulders. "Because I'm the happiest man in the world," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "Why?" Adrian smiled through his tears, looking at that little face that was a perfect mix of him and Rachel. "Because I love you, my daughter. I love you more than anything in the world." "I love you too, Dad." Dad. The most beautiful word he had ever heard in his life. That day, walking back home with Holly chattering excitedly about the presentation she would give in school, Adrian understood that his life had finally found its true purpose. It wasn't the business. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the professional success he had always chased. It was this. It was being a father. It was being present. It was being the person Holly would look for in tough times, the person she would trust, the person who would always be there for her in every achievement and every difficulty. It was being Holly's dad. And for the first time in 5 years, Adrian felt truly whole. A month after the paternity reveal, Adrian proved that his words were not just empty promises. Rachel was in the kitchen, organizing a pile of overdue bills that were accumulating on the small table, when Adrian arrived to pick up Holly from school. It was a routine he had naturally taken on. Every day at 3 in the afternoon, he was there, waiting at the gate, ready to walk his daughter home. "Are those bills worrying you?" he asked. Noticing the tense expression on her face, Rachel quickly gathered the papers, trying to hide them. "It's nothing, just some things to organize." "Rachel," his voice was gentle but firm, "we don't have to pretend anymore. We're a family now, let me help." She hesitated. Pride still stung when she had to accept help, especially from him. But the reality of the overdue bills was stronger than her pride. There's some late bills," she finally admitted. "Electricity, water, a few installments. I could manage when I was unemployed, but everything fell behind." Adrian took the bills from her hand and started looking them over one by one, without judgment, just calculating. "What's the total?" "Adrian, I can't accept you." "What's the total?" he repeated more firmly. Rachel sighed, defeated. "Sign about $800. Without a word, Adrian took his checkbook from his pocket. Rachel watched him fill out a check for the exact amount of the bills. "There," he said, handing the paper to her. "Now you can sleep peacefully." "Adrian, I don't know how to thank you, but I also don't know when I'll be able to pay you back." "I don't want you to pay me back," he interrupted. "I want you to use this peace of mind to get organized, to look for a job you enjoy without the pressure of overdue bills." Rachel looked at the check, then at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you two are my family, and families take care of each other." But Adrian didn't stop there. In the following days, he showed that his commitment went far beyond money. Every morning, he would show up at 7 to help Holly get ready for school. He would make breakfast while Rachel got their daughter dressed, take Holly to school, and pick her up at the end of the day. "You don't have to do this every day," Rachel said one morning, watching him fry eggs in her kitchen as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "I want to," he replied simply. "I lost 5 years of her life. I don't want to miss another day." And it wasn't just the big things. Adrian started noticing the small details that make a difference in daily life. When he saw that the kitchen faucet was dripping, he called a plumber. When he realized Holly was growing and her clothes were getting small, he showed up with bags of new clothes. Holly needs new clothes," he said casually, leaving the bags in the living room. "Adrian, you can't keep spending money on us like this." "I can, and I will. She's my daughter. It's my responsibility too." Rachel began to realize that Adrian really had changed. The man who once left her because she couldn't keep up with his new world was now there every day, proving with his actions that her and Holly's place was right beside him. With the bills paid and a more organized routine, Rachel was finally able to focus on looking for a real job, not just any job to survive. She had always loved to cook. Back when they were young and dating, she would cook for Adrian and he always praised her dishes. It was an old dream to work in a restaurant, but circumstances never allowed it. Now, with the stability Adrian brought, she could finally pursue that dream. "There's an opening for a kitchen assistant at Bella Vista," she told Adrian one afternoon, excited. "It's a new Italian restaurant that opened downtown. Are you going to apply?" "I already did. They called me for a practical test tomorrow." "That's great. You'll do wonderfully." Adrian wasn't just being kind. He truly believed in her, and that made all the difference. On the day of the test, Rachel woke up nervous. It had been so long since she had applied for a job she actually wanted, not just needed. "Everything will be fine," Adrian said, making her breakfast. "You cook better than many chefs I know." "How can you know that? It's been 5 years since you've tasted my food." "I remember every dish you made for me," he said, smiling. "And Holly always says that Mommy's food is the best in the world." Rachel got the job. Not only did she get it, but she impressed the chef so much that he hired her directly for a better position than the original opening, kitchen assistant, with the possibility of advancing to line cook. "I got it," she shouted, entering the house that day, radiant with happiness. Holly ran to hug her, and Adrian smiled in that way that always reminded her of the young man she had met years ago. "I knew you would," he said, and the way he said it made Rachel realize he truly believed in her. The job at Bella Vista was exactly what Rachel needed to regain her self-esteem. Chef Marco, the owner, soon noticed her talent and started giving her more responsibilities. "You have golden hands," he said, after Rachel prepared a sauce that became a hit at the restaurant. "Have you ever thought about taking a culinary course?" Rachel had never considered it a real possibility, but now, with a more stable life, she began to think about it. Within 3 months, she was earning enough to contribute significantly to the household expenses. It was no longer just Adrian paying for everything. Now they shared responsibilities like a real family. "I can pay half the rent now," she said one evening after Holly had gone to bed. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. I want to contribute. I want us to be real partners, not just you helping me." Adrian understood. It was important for Rachel to regain her independence, her dignity. He accepted her contribution, knowing it made her feel whole again. Over time, the dynamic in the house changed completely. Rachel would wake up earlier to make breakfast before going to work. Adrian would take Holly to school, pick her up at the end of the day, and the three of them would have dinner together every night. It was a simple domestic routine, but one that neither of them had experienced before. Adrian had never had a real family. Rachel had never had a partner who truly shared the responsibilities. "So you know what I like most," Holly said one night, as the three of them were washing dishes together. "What, sweetie?" Rachel asked. "That our house is always filled with the sound of happy people now." The girl's observation hit both adults in a different, but equally profound way. On a Friday night, after Holly was asleep, Rachel and Adrian were sitting on the sofa watching a movie. It was something they had started doing in recent weeks. Quiet moments together, unhurried, just enjoying each other's company. "Rachel," Adrian said suddenly, turning off the television. He turned to face her, and there was something different in his expression. Something more vulnerable, more open. "I need to tell you something." Rachel felt her heart speed up. Over the past few months, they had built a solid partnership, a friendship based on the love they both felt for Holly. But there was always something unsaid between them, a tension that hung in the air. "What is it?" Adrian took a deep breath, as if preparing for something he had been thinking about for a long time. "The biggest mistake of my life was leaving you," he said, his voice low but firm. "I never forgot you, Rachel. I never stopped loving you. I know I hurt you in a way that might be impossible to forgive, but I want a second chance." Rachel remained silent, looking at him. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, could feel the weight of his words. They were words she had dreamed of hearing for years, then had tried to forget she ever wanted to hear. "Adrian." "You don't have to answer now," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know. For you to know that all of this, being here, taking care of you, building a life together, it's not just because of Holly. It's because I love you. I always have." Rachel continued to look at him, feeling a complex mix of emotions: love, fear, hope, caution. Instead of answering with words, she simply smiled. A small but genuine smile. A smile that said maybe, that said we'll see, that said let time show us the way. Adrian understood. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. It was a possibility. It was hope. A few weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon, the three of them were in the small yard. Holly was playing with a set of paints Adrian had given her, painting imaginary flowers in the air. Rachel was reading a recipe book she had borrowed from work. Adrian watched them both, still half in disbelief that this simple, perfect life was really his. "Come here," Holly said suddenly, dropping her paints. "I want to take a picture of our family." She ran into the house and came back with the old camera Rachel kept in a drawer. "Holly, you don't know how to use that camera," Rachel laughed. "Yes, I do. The teacher taught us. You just have to press here." She positioned the camera on a small stool, set the timer, and ran to join the two of them. "Everyone together," she shouted. Rachel got up from her chair. Adrian moved closer, and the three of them posed for the photo. Holly in the middle, Rachel on one side, Adrian on the other. But at the last second, Holly had a better idea. "Family hug!" she yelled, pulling the two adults closer. And there, in the small yard of the simple house, the three of them hugged. Rachel felt Adrian's arm around her shoulders, felt Holly squeeze between them, and for the first time in 5 years, she felt whole. The camera clicked, capturing the moment. Holly, Rachel, and Adrian together, embracing, smiling, a family. It wasn't perfect. There were still issues to resolve, feelings to process, a future to build. But it was real. It was full of love, forgiveness, and hope. It was a new beginning. And for the first time in a long time, Rachel believed that some happy endings were actually possible. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.